lots of football talk to have that we're going to engage in. Jack Tuttle taking the reins for Indiana. So there's the storyline, but he gets great timing. He gets the bye week to prepare. And so that is going to be good for him, because it's going to be it has to be a slightly different game plan, you would hope and imagine, for Indiana going forward. Let's see. I lost my page where I was.
Well, let me chime in here really quick while you look for your page. Is that it needs to be a different game plan no matter who the starting quarterback is.
That's what I was saying. Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, whether it's Jack Tuttle or if Michael Penix comes back, what they're doing right now is not working. So whatever the game plan is, they have to shift it around. And I know Tuttle's probably going to be the guy in the next 2 weeks, and we'll see what the prognosis is for Michael Penix. But they cannot keep going like they're going, or they're going to finish. Mitchell Page told this to John and I a few days ago on the podcast. They'll finish 2-10.
Well, I don't disagree, because if you don't score points, you can't win games.
Right.
And as good as this defense has been, the offense has been the opposite.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be negative. I try to always, speak the truth, but trying to also learn to make sure you always give it time to met itself out. But I'm not in agreement with how they approached this season. I think that they just decided Michael Penix was going to be the guy before he was clear to even play. So that was a decision that was made. And I wonder about the development of Jack Tuttle. He could have been developed a lot better and been even more prepared, but is what it is. They are where they are. But the biggest issue has been the offensive line. And I've talked about this with other people. I don't understand how an offensive line of veterans can come back and be worse. And they are. They've added a piece, but yet they're still not as good as they were. Not that they were great last year, but it looks worse this season.
It looks really bad. And I mean, I think that scheming has a lot to do with that. I think that development has a lot to do. I mean, there is no one right or wrong answer to this. It's a lot of problems, and they're not as deep as we thought. They don't look good. They still can't run the ball, even though I actually think that the running games looked a little bit better as the season has progressed, but it's still not great. They're still 13th in the Big Ten. I knew that they were in trouble when they rushed for 3.5 yards per carry against Idaho. That's not good. You can't. Indiana hasn't scored a touchdown in Big Ten play yet. They're the only team that hasn't been able to do that. They squandered opportunities in the red zone against Cincinnati. I mean, this is just stacking one thing on top of the other. And as we talked about in the opener, you play in the toughest division, in my opinion, in college football right now, because you've got Michigan State, and Penn State all undefeated. Ohio State looks like it's hitting its stride right now. Rutgers is dramatically improved. Maryland's offense looks a lot better, even though they didn't look great against Iowa. I mean, they're coming into this season, I think we would have said Indiana's got guaranteed wins over Maryland, Rutgers. You could have probably tossed Minnesota into the conversation at one point, but they look like they're getting better. I mean, I don't think there's a guaranteed win on Indiana's schedule the rest of the way. They still have to play Michigan State, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Maryland. They still have to play Purdue and Minnesota. So where are you going to get the wins? You have to do something offensively. And the thing to me, Jim, is the defenses in the Big Ten across the board, maybe throw Illinois out the picture, the defenses in this league, especially the teams on Indiana's schedule, are a lot better than they were a season ago. A lot better.
That includes Purdue. Maybe not Minnesota is the only one.
Minnesota's defense is really good. They shut out Colorado. They held Purdue to 13 points.
They lost to even though I said it was Kent State. It was Bowling Green. They lost to Bowling Green, though.
But they held them to 14 points. It was because the offense couldn't move. They had the same trouble as Indiana does. They can't do anything offensively, but defensively they're playing really well. I mean, you throw away that 45-point loss, or the 14-point loss, 45-31 game to Ohio State, And I think that their defense is giving up somewhere around like 10 points a game or something ridiculous like that. So that's what I'm saying. The defenses that Indiana is going to face are pretty good. So when you've had trouble, and I know that Penn State and Iowa are probably the two of the best 3 defenses in the Big Ten right now, but it doesn't get much easier.
No, it doesn't get easier. Well, it gets easier if you want to compare it to the first
exactly
3 out of the first 5 games, because
right.
What team in history has played in their first 5 weeks 3 teams that are in the top 5? They weren't in the top 5 when they played, but it doesn't matter to me. That means the top 5 teams that they're in there now. Right. So Indiana has played 3 top 5 teams in the first 5 weeks, and that does not erase their offensive ineptitude. But it tells you, had they had some semblance of offense, they beat Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They just don't lose that game. They still lose to Iowa, I think. But it may have, who knows how it could have changed that game. Penn State didn't score a ton of points.
No,
I mean,
they
wore them down eventually. They wore the defense down eventually, but they did that because the offense was not on the damn field. The defense was on the field all the time.
I think that Indiana's defense played its best game of the season against Penn State, and holding them to 24 points. That's I don't want to say that's good enough to win, but that should have been good enough to threaten. And at no point did you think Indiana was going to win that. I mean, the defense deserves all kinds of credit, because you look at the scoreboard, and I know you give up 24 points, but I mean, the offense could not produce anything, could not move the ball in any capacity. So to me, this defense is playing lights out. But the thing that concerns me about this is not just from a game standpoint. This is not just from 60 minutes each week. This is also, if the defense is going to be on the field and have to exert that much energy every single game, they're going to get worn down by games 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I mean, it's just not sustainable. So you've got to figure out a way. If you're not scoring points, you at least have to move the chains. You've got to move the chains in order to keep the defense well rested. And maybe you don't have the offense to score 30 points per game. I don't think they do. But they have to play like Northwestern. I don't know how to sum it. I don't know how to look at what Northwestern did. They dinked and dunked. They very rarely score 35 points, but they're able to beat teams because they are able to stay on the field, ball control, pick up chunk yardage, keep the chains moving, and that gives their defense at least some time to rest. Indiana's defense is still probably winded from last week, from the first 5 weeks.